Well, I just want to welcome everyone here to Embrace at all 5 of our campuses. My name is Adam. I'm one of the pastors here, and as always, we're so excited that you're here, just thrilled that you have come. And now I cannot believe it, but we are now a full week into the new year. It's hard to believe. It's 2016, and each year at this time, it just kind of feels like we're given a fresh start to life in general, doesn't it? It just feels like we're given a clean slate, and the year ahead of us is a blank space, baby. Thank you, Taylor Swift. No, but really, this time of the year, it just kind of feels like we're given a new beginning, and the possibilities are endless, and we're given a blank page, and once more as a whole, it just kind of feels like we're given a fresh start. It just feels like we're given a fresh start. Now, I know for myself, when I look at my own life, there are so many different places that I could really use a fresh start in, from the goals that I have, to my relationships, to my priorities, to my parenting skills. I mean, I definitely did not win a parenting award in 2015. It just had one too many family trips to Target, if you know what I'm saying. Thankfully, though, the Webbers didn't have any more children in 2015 either. Can I get an amen in the house of God? But again, there are so many different places that I could really use a fresh start in. But honestly, this year, more than any other place, the part of me that needs a fresh start the most is my attitude. No question, it's not a lie, it's my attitude. To put it nicely, and maybe you can relate with this, and maybe you can't, maybe you're Jesus, but so often my attitude, well, it just sucks. It pretty much sucks. And seriously, I know for myself more than any other time of my life this past year, when I'm being honest, it just has more than normal. I mean, it's one thing for us to have a bad day, but it's another thing for us to complain daily and to wake up regularly on edge, and you're just waiting for someone to say something so you can slap them. You ever felt that way? Where you just wake up and you want to slap somebody, or to live each day all bitter and negative, to being a prideful jerk, to always being the victim, to being impatient and critical of everything and everyone. I mean, it's one thing to start honking at other drivers, and it's another thing when you start honking at red stoplights. It's like, what is wrong with me? Get a grip on yourself. No, but seriously though, it's just so easy to have a bad attitude, isn't it? I mean, did anyone happen to have a bad attitude over Christmas? Maybe a bad attitude after seeing family or spending time with the in-laws? All of you are liars. Or maybe it was a bad attitude this past week, trying to get back into the normal routine of life again. For so many reasons though, whether it's brought on by other people, cloudy weather, a bad internet connection, or for no apparent reason whatsoever. Again, it's just so easy to have a bad attitude. And when it comes to a new year and having a fresh start, I know that so often that my attitude is what needs one the most. It just needs a fresh start. Now, not to disagree with some of what we just said, but truth be told, the new year in itself really doesn't change a thing, does it? I mean, this month is really no different than last month. It's just a whole lot colder, and we don't get any Christmas presents. When you start thinking about it, it's actually quite depressing. Nothing else has changed. We're most likely still married to the same person, hopefully. We're most likely still have the same job, working with the same people. We're most likely still facing the same trials. We most likely still get paid the same thing, most likely still driving the same crappy car. And so every year and each January, we talk about new beginnings, and we feel like we're given a fresh start, but honestly, and I hate to be a Debbie Downer here, but really, it's no different than any other time of the year. I mean, we're still the same person with the same circumstances, with the same exact attitude. And so there's that positive thought. But I'm also just guessing that a bunch of us are here and we're naysayers about a fresh start altogether. I mean, whether it's our attitude or anything else, we struggle to believe that a fresh start is possible for us. Like it might be for someone else, but I'm just saying that my life is far from looking like a blank piece of paper, right? And even if we've lived a good life, it just has a way of taking a toll on a person. And some of us are here and we feel like we've been walked on and overlooked and used and treated like garbage our entire lives. And just in general, whether we're 20, 40, 60, or 80, I don't always like my attitude either, but this is just the person that I am, and it's how I've always been, and it's who I will always be, right? It's just who I've always been, and it's who I'll always be. And even if I wanted to change, I can't. And when it comes to my attitude, whether it's January or July, I wish a fresh start was possible, but it's just not reality. It's a nice thought, but it's just not reality. Again, it's kind of a cute idea, but when it comes to my life, it's just not reality. Well, at one point in the Bible, a guy named Paul is writing a letter to a group of Christians in a city called Ephesus, and he's talking with them about having and living a new life. And here's what he says. He says, throw off your old self and your former way of life, and let the Spirit renew your thoughts and your attitudes, and put on your new self, created to be like God. Once more, he says, throw off your old self, get rid of the person that you are without God, and let the Spirit, let God within you renew your thoughts and your attitudes, and put on your new self. And this word new here can also translate to the word fresh, and I love that. And put on your fresh self, created to be like God. And so basically take off your old self and put on your fresh self, letting Him renew your thoughts and your attitudes. And you see, here's the truth. What Paul is saying is, whether we believe it or not, a fresh start is in fact possible. It's possible. And not because it's a new year, not because it's January or nice wishful thinking or 5 easy steps to a fresh start, but instead a fresh start is possible when it comes to our lives, and more specifically today, when it comes to our attitude, because and only because of God working within us. Again, Paul says, let the Spirit, let God within us renew your thoughts and your attitude. We're offered a fresh start supernaturally by Him working within us, by Him changing our feelings and our desires. A fresh start is possible by Him changing our thoughts and our attitudes. And so just to be clear, God, He offers a fresh start to your attitude, and He offers a fresh start to mine. Once more, for all of us, Paul makes it clear that a fresh start is in fact possible. And the other thing that I just love about these verses is how Paul speaks about the person and how he speaks to them, and the person who just claims that this is just how I am. I mean, to those of us who want to claim that this is just the person that I am and this is just my attitude, and I've just always been kind of critical of others and I can't help it, and it's just who I am, and I've always been a bit of a jerk and a loudmouth, and it's just my personality, and this is just who I am. I've always been a bit defensive, and I hold on to grudges, and I've just always been a negative person, and I tend to worry about everything, and I always see the bad in situations, and I'm just a restless person, and I can't relax, and I know I complain all of the time, but this is just who I am. Again, to those of us who want to say that this is just my attitude and who I am, Paul would say, yep, you're right. That's so true. You're absolutely right. That is until you meet Jesus. You're absolutely right. That's who you are until you meet Jesus and you start following Him, because when that happens, hear my words, throw off your old self and your former way of life. Get rid of the person that you are without God and put on your fresh self, created to be like God in all that He is, letting Him renew your thoughts and your attitude. Yep, that's maybe who we've been in the past, the old us. And that's maybe been our attitude in the past, how we were, but when we start following Jesus, it's no longer the person that we are, and it's no longer our attitude either, because we're told to put on our fresh self, letting God renew us from the inside out, starting with our attitude. And if we haven't heard it yet, a fresh start is in fact possible. It's possible for each and every one of us. And so this is good stuff, right? And maybe you're just wondering, well, how is all this possible? Like, how exactly do we let God renew our attitude? And well, it starts by having a relationship with Jesus and fully surrendering ourselves to Him. I mean, it's possible that we're here and we maybe grew up in the church and we were baptized and whatever, or we've tried to be a good person our entire lives and whatever else, but if we're here and we've never had a relationship with Jesus, it first starts here. And just inviting God into our lives, asking Him to change us from the inside out, asking for His forgiveness, declaring that we no longer want to be the same person with the same attitude any longer, and just declaring, Jesus, when it comes to my life and my attitude, I want a fresh start. And so would you help me to throw off my old self with my old attitude, and would you help me to put on my new self, my fresh self, and Jesus, from this day forward, I want to follow you. I want to know you and have a relationship with you, and I want my life, specifically my attitude, to look more and more and more like yours. So again, it starts with having a relationship with Jesus, and then hear this, our attitude will continue to change the more time we spend with Him. I mean, have you ever noticed how easy it is to take on the attitude of others? Like if a coworker is complaining, you're randomly just tempted to start complaining yourself. And if your spouse, for some reason, is half crazy, you end up feeling half crazy as well. And on the flip side of that, if someone is happy or sees the positive in things, unless you're having a really, really bad day, you start seeing the positive in things in others. Again, it's just so easy to take on the attitude of others, and the same is true with God. I mean, the more time we spend with Jesus, the more his attitude will begin to change ours. The more time we spend with him, talking with him, the more time we spend in the Word, reading the Bible, the more time we acknowledge him and are just with him throughout the day, the more his attitude begins to change our attitude. And here's what's powerful. When we do this, here's what's so cool. Slowly but surely, we'll begin to notice the change inside of us. We'll begin to see it in ourselves. Times in the past that we would have been resentful and bitter, we'll start offering grace and have understanding. Times that would have made us stressed or short with someone, times that would have left us consumed with worry, we'll begin to have joy and peace in these same situations. Again, our attitude, it will slowly but surely begin to change, and we'll notice it, and the people around us will begin to notice it as well. And another thing that will slowly change is we'll begin to catch ourselves. I mean, we'll begin to realize that we have a bad attitude, or that there's certain situations or people that seem to change or give us a bad attitude. Instead of just going there and letting it happen, we'll begin to pray in these situations instead. And sometimes it might need to daily and minute to minute do so, but we'll begin to pray, Lord, whenever I'm around this certain person at work, I just always seem to become critical of others, or I seem to struggle with jealousy. And so, Lord, would you give me your attitude today? And Lord, when it comes to my neighbor, my kids, my ex, I just feel like I'm always so negative about things, and I'm just annoyed about every little thing. And so, Jesus, would you please give me your attitude today? And Lord, when it comes to this situation, whenever my spouse and I talk about finances, whenever I'm out with my friends on a Friday night, whenever I happen to watch a Cincinnati Bengals game, Lord, help us. My attitude changes, and so Jesus, would you help me to throw off my old self? Would you and you alone please renew my thoughts and my attitude? Help me to put on my fresh self, and would you give me your attitude today? You see, when it comes to life, so often we don't get to choose what we go through, do we? So often we don't get to choose what happens to us within any given day, or even who we're able to spend the day with. Sometimes we can't choose that, but what we do get to choose every single day is whether or not we'll ask God for his help. Whether or not we'll ask him to give us his attitude, his heart, his look on the day. That's what we're able to choose. Every single day we do get to choose that, whether we'll ask for God's help, whether we'll cling to him, whether we'll hold on to him, whether we'll ask him to change our heart, to change our attitude. We get to choose that every single day. Now, I'm so excited about the next 2 weeks of this series. Definitely come back and bring a friend with. And I just got to say that every single week, every last one of us has a chance to introduce someone to Jesus every week. And so, Lord, would you please somehow use us to invite others? But closing things up today, I know for myself, the longer I follow Jesus, the more thankful I've become for his conviction in my life, particularly when it comes to my attitude. And this week, I struggled with deciding which attitude, conviction, God's story to share, because I have so many of them, and don't judge me. But earlier this summer, we hadn't moved to our new house yet, but one day I came home from work, and my kids let me know that one of the neighbor kids had climbed on our backyard fence, and that they broke a board on the fence when they climbed on it. Now, this really isn't a big deal, but for some reason it was a big deal to me. Again, do not judge me. Do not judge your pastor. It's wrong. I was just tired. And I came home and I just wanted to relax, and I was grumpy about all of it, and all I could think was, darn neighbor kids, the stinking kids and their deadbeat parents, like stinking neighborhood hoodlums. And so I grabbed a couple of screws and I get my drill, because I'm handy like that. It's actually a complete lie. And I head to my backyard to fix my fence, and I'm mumbling as I walk, and my oldest son is walking with me, Hudson, and he actually said this to me. He said, Dad, they didn't do it on purpose. They were just talking with us, and it broke when they were talking, and all I could think was, does it look like I care? stinking kids, deadbeat parents, hoodlums, broken fence. And so I started fixing my fence, and I'm frustrated as all get out. I'm mumbling to myself when all of a sudden and out of nowhere, it was like God showed up and he was right there. And he was just like, you wretched, old, grumpy scumbag, you know? What in the world? What in the world? And I kid you not, it almost brought me to my knees. God was just like, really? What? Who are you? And you of all people? Are you kidding? And in that moment, I just saw how ugly my attitude was so clearly. No kidding, I just started praying, Lord, would you please forgive me? Lord, would you change my heart? Would you change my attitude? Would you help my life to look more and more and more like yours? And in that moment, I just realized that in more ways than one, that I was just desperate for a fresh start. Just that moment where you see in yourself, you're like, who and how, like, did you become this person? Well, today, if we've somehow missed it, whether we believe it or not, a fresh start is in fact possible for each and every one of us. It's possible, not because it's a new year, not because it's January. Here's 5 easy steps to a fresh start, but instead a fresh start is possible when it comes to our lives, and more specifically when it comes to our attitude, because and only because of God working within us. It happens supernaturally. Once more, if we haven't heard it somehow, he offers a fresh start to your attitude, and somehow, some way, he offers a fresh start to mine as well. Would you join me in prayer? Gracious Father, Heavenly King, we come before you so grateful, so needy, Lord, often so broken. I gotta believe I'm not the only one who in more ways than one comes today desperate for a fresh start, needy for a fresh start, crying out for a fresh start, maybe believing that a fresh start isn't possible. And God, we're grateful that it isn't possible because it's a certain time of the year and it's only one time that we get to offer it. And we're grateful that it's not about January, and we're grateful that it's not about 5 easy steps, because I seem to struggle with even the first step with anything, God, but we're so grateful that a fresh start is possible only because of you changing us somehow, some way from the inside out, starting with our attitude. God, if we've never done so before, we invite you into our lives. We ask that you make your home within us. We ask that you transform us. We ask that you'd help us. You'd give us the strength and guidance to follow you from this day forward. Lord, we want to follow you and you alone. Father, for those of us who have maybe been following you for years and that we believe the lie that this is just who I am, you know. I'm just always a critical person and it's just who I am. I'm a bit of a loudmouth and people just expect it of me. And I'm just always the person who's saying this and doing that, and that's just how I am. And I mean, it's just, you know, it's just the person that I am. God, if that's us, would you bring us to our knees? Would you convict us? Would you show us that a different way is possible and that it's so much better? Would you help us to throw off our old self, whether we're starting to follow you today or we've been following you for 20 years? Would you help us to throw off our old self, the person that we are without you? And would you help us to put on our new self, our fresh self, letting you and you alone transform us, letting you alone making us new? We pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.